Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new interview. Today I'll be speaking with Professor Vladimir Andreff, Emeritus Professor of Economics. He's a well-respected name in sports economics. He's based in the University Paris de Sud,
Paris, Panthéon-Sorbonne.
Sorbonne. Good evening, sir. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It's interesting. We've been having this 1 week of intensive study in sports economics. For many of us, it's the first time of really exploring the subjects in sport economics. How long have you been teaching sports economics?
It's a good question. I started up teaching sports economics as early as 1977. It was told that it was the first teaching in sports economics in the world, which is wrong. The first teachings have emerged, of course, in the US, but it might have been the first one in Europe.
Wow. 1977, many of us were not born. So it's we've talked about the increasing cost of staging world events like the Olympics and the FIFA World Cup. Why do you think humanity still invests in hosting mega events when we know that they are really expensive and they are becoming a burden on economies as it is?
Because the decision is not made by economists. It is made by politicians. And the politicians are many reasons to be proud to host the big events, including mega sporting events in their city or in their nation, it depends. And they are, at the end of the day, they are the final decision makers. And we, as economists, we can advise them. But look, if I go to the mayor of Paris and I say, oh, give up, it's not a good bargain to host the games, she will laugh. And she will tell me, take the door, please. Okay, so there is a sort of clash between economic rationality and political careers, I would say.
Would you also say that maybe the glamour of hosting events like this trumps all the economic indices, that people would not look at, they would rather look at the glamour, the beauty, the passion, the emotion that sport brings instead of the economic undertones?
Yes, but I think if we look back in the past, let's say at the first games, glamour was there, and maybe glamour is still there, but in between we have had some financial catastrophe like the Montreal Games with a $1 billion deficit, and then the IOC itself started up to put in the candidature files a number of questions about the economy of the Olympics. Now, if you apply to host the games, you have to write down a number of chapters with a lot of figures about the costs, the revenues, the expected positive effects, negative effects. And this started up basically by the mid-70s after Montreal.
So we know it's tough. At the end of the day, you host these big events, you get in debt, but still politicians make the decision to go. Can you speak about increasing movement from the West for hosting the games? In 2008 we had Beijing, in 2014 we had Brazil, Sochi hosted in Russia in 2014 for the Winter Games. We're going to have Japan host in 2020, but now we are getting more countries from the from the former Eastern Bloc trying to host. What is? How do you define why is this?
But one of the reasons is that in the so-called Western democracies, now some people are inclined to make a vote, to make a referendum, and most of the referendums came out with a conclusion that people won't pay for the games. Then the IOC has to find another series of countries. So one series of countries which is interesting to the IOC is the so-called BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, because they are potentially the future most powerful economies in the world. And then of course you see, except in India, they have got something, the FIFA World Cup or the Olympics, the three of them, Russia, Brazil, China. And next you will have Kazakhstan, for instance. Kazakhstan is applying. So they are not that much democratic countries, but they are potentially strong economies in the future. And this will attract votes.
Let's look at emerging countries in Africa. Why? I know your research has proven that the more a country puts into sport, the more a country's sports budget, the more it's able to win Olympic medals. Especially in my country, Nigeria, we want to win Olympic medals, but we don't have so much money. What should we focus on to be able to win medals?
Before speaking of Nigeria, just one word. South Africa has nearly succeeded. So they did not win. They did not win the World Cup, but they hosted it. I would not say successfully, but it was not a mess anyway. Okay, it was lower than the expectations, but it was not a mess. So another big country in Africa is Nigeria, of course, and you have a potential. You are a potential economic power for the future. You have natural resources, you have oil, so, and you are developing in some sense. In a study which is not about sport, I have defined a sample of the next new emerging countries after the BRICS, which ones? And I found about 12 countries, including Nigeria, which is a good news. Potentially, your economy will be developing, and if you agree with the economic models of the economists, when you are developing, you are increasing your chance of gaining medals and, of course, of hosting the games.
Yeah, that's really nice to know. Let's talk about doping. The market for doping is so huge all over the world, and we know that the World Anti-Doping Agency is not as fast enough, to catch up with the present day realities. What needs to be done to have maybe a field that is flat for everybody to participate in sport?
So it's, in a sense, it's a dream, but the first thing that should be done, I would say, is to increase the financial and human resources provided to the WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency. This is the first thing to do. Now, another way is to think about why are the reasons why the anti-doping combat is not that efficient today. It is based, as I told you, on a list of drugs and substances. But this is a bad incentive because up to a threshold anyone can dope, which is the threshold defined on the list. It is also an incentive for laboratories, pharmaceutical laboratories, to find new products which are not on the list. So it's not that efficient. I have my own idea about that, which is that each athlete will declare at the beginning of a season its product, its drugs diary, and he has to stick to. And if when he is controlled he does not stick to, he must be banned for life from sport. I'm not sure that it will be efficient, but why not try it?
And looking at the doping, is it not enough to show to athletes that doping can lead to health deterioration in the future? But do you think most times the economic impact or the present financial rewards trump the health?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, in the US, several times, in one or two EU countries also, we have made inquiries with the teenagers involved into sport, saying them, okay, you dope yourself, you become a superstar champion, okay, and you die within 3 years. This is your first option. The second option, you don't dope, you don't become a superstar, and you're still alive until the age of 80. 3/4 of the teenagers said we prefer the first option.
They'd rather dope and die.
Yeah, they prefer dying after being a superstar. So of course, there are even those doped are aware that their health is in danger, maybe their lives. But they say, okay, for short term, I will be a star, and maybe I will die within 10 years.
So basically, we are living in a crisis, I mean, a morally challenged period in sport. Let's round up the FIFA World Cup. Recently, Mr. Gianni Infantino said he wants to increase the participation of countries to 48, I think. Do you think this is economically is this the way to go for the World Cup to make it more inclusive?
It will make the World Cup longer, you know, so the event will last a long time, which means that obviously it will attract more money, more teams, more money. But my fear in that is that it can become to be boring. You know, when you have 38 teams, it makes a number of matches. So already with 24 teams, you have a lot of matches. I'm not sure whether you watch all the matches. I'm not able to watch all the matches, you know. And if you double the quantity, or more than double the quantity of matches, maybe people will be bored with World Cup soccer.
If you had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Infantino, what would be your advice?
I would not advise him to expand too much his competition. It is already successful. And look, and Infantino was the general secretary of the UEFA, and the UEFA has the very successful products like the Euro, like the Champions League. So normally he knows what he's talking about. So probably he may have a second thought about this idea of extending the World Cup.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking to Professor Vladimir Andreff. While the semester continues, we'll bring you more esteemed guests to share their thoughts on sports and management. Thank you very much, Professor Andreff.
Thank you very much to you as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.